What is good, everybody? Sean, Sherelle, we good?
I can hear you. We're doing well. Enjoy
I
seeing
got a nod
Sherelle's
from Sean.
Sherelle's backyard.
All right, I got a nod from Sean. I got a nod from Sherelle. I think the people who are online have got us. Good stuff. I think we're ready to roll, and we're thankful for everybody who's here tonight joining us live. Hey, if you are not joining us live and you're listening to it later on, we appreciate you just as well. I'm just incredibly grateful to be talking to you guys. Holiday weekend, a lot going on. We want to start off just saying how much we appreciate those who gave the ultimate sacrifice for uh, for this country. I know Sherelle's got a deep tie to the military. He and I both grew up next to Fort Bragg, and I might be speaking out of school here, but I know that Sherelle has not forgotten. And we're very grateful for all those who have served and have given their life for our freedom so that we can do podcasts like this. Joining you here on a Memorial Day weekend, coast to coast. Thanks to everybody who's already in the chat. You guys are amazing joining us on a holiday night. A lot to talk about. We were a full confession. We were going to do this last week. Decided not to because there was just a dearth of information. And I know y'all love Sherelle and Sean, but y'all didn't want to look at my mug for a full hour just, prattling on. So we decided to cancel because we actually do have stuff to talk about this week. And without further ado, shout out to Johnny T-shirt for sponsoring. Shout out to uh, Sherelle and Sean for being a part of the show. Sherelle McMillan, how you feeling?
I'm better now that I'm unmuted, but I'm ready to go. It's been a while since we've all been together, so
It
yeah.
has been, man. It really has been. Sean, how you doing, dude?
I'm doing well. Excited to be back since I was not on the last one with you guys and Travis. So excited to be back with the crew.
Yeah, well, we're not the same without you. I can say that. I have no problem saying that. Um, Shoot, my headset's deciding to get all wacky. Um, so let's get off and rolling. Producer John has cruised in and given us kind of a little bit of a blessing to deal with our hiccups. Appreciate the patience. First things first, guys. Sherelle, you broke it last week. Jaren Stevenson from Seaforth. He is in the 24 class. Big kid, power forward. He's taking an official to UNC tomorrow. He's been to campus many times, but I want you to tell everybody what is tomorrow's official going to be like for the young man, the program, and potentially his parents. I'm assuming they're going to join him since it is an official.
Yeah, so it's funny because they are en route back from Memphis from this final, I guess you call it regular season EYBL session. So one of the advantages of living, 10, 15 minutes from Carolina is that you can get home at 11 o'clock on a Monday night, a holiday Monday night, and be on campus, early afternoon on Tuesday. And that's the plan for Stevenson. And I think, as you said, probably maybe only Brandon Ingram or Leaky took more unofficial visits to Carolina than Stevenson, but he might hold the record. I wish we could look it up. But I think this is kind of a chance for UNC to give like a closing argument. Don't know of any more visits on the schedule for Stevenson. He was at Georgetown way back in the fall. He's been to Missouri for an official visit. He's taken unofficial visits to a few other local schools, and he also took an unofficial, I believe, to Alabama within the last month. So, excuse me, he took multiple trips to Virginia too. So things are starting to wind down in his recruitment, and it seems like Carolina has the last at bat, so to speak, with this official visit. So I think it's just their chance to say, hey, we offered you way back in October 2021. Hubert Davis hadn't coached a game yet as a head coach when Stevenson got an offer. So I think that's the message, is that they've been after him as long as anyone, and they really want him, and they'll take him in whichever class he decides to come.
Sean, I'm going to come to you first. Well, not really first. Our live thing has got me, y'all. Real talk. Like this live thing is just your boy is struggling tonight. Sean, I want to ask you, what are the assets in Stevenson's game? Again, a 24 class member right now, but I want you to just give me a straight up analysis of what are his strengths right now, and then what might be his deficits. Again, this only matters. We'll talk about the reclass here in a second, but just talk about right now if he were to set foot on campus tomorrow. So, like, assuming he plays pickup with whatever guys are on campus, I don't even know if that's legal or not. But assuming he plays pickup, what is he going to show strength wise, and what's he going to show that he probably needs to work on?
Strength wise, I think he, 6'8", 6'9", he's going to be that stretch four, not so much from a shooting perspective, but from a slashing, being able to handle the ball a little bit, and just more the modern type of big. I think he would be able to just from a size perspective, I think he'd be able to handle the pickup games in terms of grabbing rebounds, both offensively and defensively, attacking the basket, lobs, etc. I think right now 2024 is a top 20 player playing on the EYBL. I had a really good session in Memphis, but prior to that had struggled. Wasn't the strongest of competition throughout the high school season. So I do think next year in college, I personally would not have high expectations. Almost looking at it as a redshirt year where you do get to scrimmage and play. So it's not like it's Will Shaver where you're probably not getting off the bench, but I think he's still probably a year away from really developing and being that 5-star prospect. But I think if all the expectations are aligned and people aren't assuming a one and done, I think just the development can be exponential this year in terms of his growth. I think we mentioned the stretch four. Obviously, to stretch, you should be able to shoot. He's able to let him fly, but in terms of his percentage, whether that's in high school or college, definitely needs some work. I think in EYBL it was in the low 20s, and high school, just watching some of the games and the form, that part definitely needs work. But once again, he has size, athleticism, and there's a reason that he was the first player offered in this class.
Let me jump in just to give you the stat,
Yeah, sure.
Joey. 8 for 41 from 3-point in EYBL sessions through today.
That is not good, Bob. But again, he's not a finished product, as most kids at his age are not. Sean, I want to ask you this. I think a lot of kids, when you start thinking about them potentially reclassing or moving up, there's a lot of difference between a kid at his age and then a kid that's finishing high school and ready to go into college. But specifically, there are some nuances with each position that you can tell a difference in between what would be a rising senior or a rising college freshman. Can you talk about those a little bit?
I mean, I think it's gonna be really challenging in general, just from a reclass perspective. We've talked about it a lot. We talked mostly about Elliot Cadeau and why we think he is ready, even though there are going to be, if he were to reclass, adjustments to his game. But we saw Gigi Jackson last year, different circumstance where he was really one of the go-to guys, but he was the number one player in the class. Put up good, some solid points and rebounds, but was extremely inefficient. And I think, looking at Stevenson and just that position in general, the 4 or 5, I think just from a strength perspective, there's going to be a big adjustment, as well as the speed of the game. Going from small school basketball in North Carolina to ACC, really what people are hoping, can be a top 5, 10, 15 team, however you want to look at it. So I think the speed of the game, the strength, and then what are those skill sets? Elliot Cadeau has a very specific skill set that we know or that we think should translate very easily. But a lot of times that skill set on these players that are reclassing up, unless you are this out-of-world talent, it does take time to adjust in general as well as improve. And I think right now he is strong in a lot of areas, but he doesn't excel. And I think that part, that improvement area is what's going to kind of should keep those expectations balanced and realistic, and not expect him to set the world on fire. But then again, ideally, when he should be entering as a freshman, he's much ahead of where he's much farther ahead of where he would have been based on getting that adjustment, working on the skill game, getting stronger, etc. So I think all of us on this are not usually fans of reclasses up, especially at this point in the season, or we're talking early May, early June. So there's exceptions, but I think in general it's tough.
Sherrill, what does that sound like? Like, what is that the reclass conversation with Jaren Stevenson sound like versus what it might sound like for some other players? We started talking about the the Cadeau stuff, I guess a month, maybe 2 months ago. What does the conversation between the staff and a player like Stevenson sound like?
Yeah, honestly, I think we haven't said this, but I think those discussions started with Stevenson some time ago, just because it was something that he was considering, but I think wanted to see how the year played out, and that's where he is now. Kind of, he has to make one, a college decision, and two, a decision on, as we said, whether or not he's going to go to college next year or go in his normal class, which would be 2024. I think some of the conversations are, as it relates to UNC, and I'm sure other schools are kind of what are your expectations for playing time, because considering you are reclassing up, there's going to be growing pains. There's going to be adjustments. So it might not be the smoothest process in the beginning. So are you okay, coming off the bench? Are you okay not starting? Are you okay maybe not getting a certain amount of shots, or, maybe playing a certain position versus one that you hope to play in the future? So I think all that stuff is discussed. And if you're clear and you communicate well, I think the two parties, whether it be at UNC or elsewhere, should have a good understanding of what the expectations are. We go back to Gigi because that's the most recent reclass that has affected UNC. The expectations were very clear for, I can't remember the South Carolina coach's name, but between him, between Coach Paris and the Jackson family, it was very clear. It was that he's going to go in, he's going to be the guy, he's going to probably take the most shots, he's going to have the ball in his hand. He's going to be able to kind of do, I don't say whatever he wants, but he's, it's a la carte out there, or excuse me, carte blanche out there for him. So I think that expectation was clear and everybody understood. So that's what the conversation is. It's just getting clarity on each side so that no one is surprised when, you know, a reclass player is not playing a lot of minutes or is playing a lot of minutes. Just there shouldn't be any surprises. And I think that's the conversations that staffs are, across the country have with guys who want to reclass.
And I think, Joey, just one quick thing. Last year, the last live period, was able to watch Ian Jackson play, and we did an Inside Carolina interview with him afterwards. And at that time, one of the questions was, "Hey, are you thinking about reclassing?" And one, he had just played on the USA U17 gold medal winning team. Two, he was on the U17 circuit already, pretty much doing whatever he wanted. So you're looking at a guy going into his junior year of high school, and like, well, what else can he do next spring and summer that he hasn't already done? Obviously, right now he's showing still improvement, but Stevenson hasn't, played on the USA basketball circuit.
Right.
He hasn't been involved, and he's played EYBL, but he's always been playing, 15, 16s, and now 17. So he's still pretty new, just in terms of I'd say, a more competitive environment, and that definitely concerns and scares me a little bit in terms of that first year adjustment.
So I want to take a great question that somebody asked here in the chat, and this is one of the things I'm trying to adapt to as we get further into these live shows. A great question from Brett Weeks. I'm sorry, not from Brett Weeks, from Mark Cole. How does Jaren Stevenson compare to Zayden High? Why does that matter? Because if Stevenson were to reclass and take one of these roster spots, he and Zayden High are all of a sudden likely vying for the same minutes. What am I missing, Sean?
I think Zayden High is, despite the low percentage, definitely more comfortable around the 3-point line and more of, I'd say, a spot up 5 that can toggle to the 4. Where Stevenson, I think, can put the ball on the floor, has better agility, is able to do more stuff with the ball. So more athletic, not the shooter that I think Zayden High can become. But you do look at Stevenson's free throw percentage, which is around 74%, and you're not, the shot isn't, despite which the stats Sherelle mentioned. I think there's the ability to work on the shot and see an improvement, but Stevenson definitely more mobile, more versatile, higher ceiling. Zayden High, just a little bit bigger, stronger, better outside shooter, but Stevenson definitely the higher potential and higher prospect.
Awesome. Appreciate that breakdown, man. I think it's valuable for folks to consider, because then we don't know if Stevenson's going to reclass, but we do know that it's been on the table for some time. Sherelle, how you feel about moving on to talking about a wrap of Elliot Cadeau's AAU career? Because I will say, my man decided to put everything on tape for session 4. I'm going to throw out some stats. Elliot Cadeau, again, we have been remarking about his film and what he's been able to do on this EYBL summer so far. In session 4, it was this was I think it was today. 29 points, 15 assists, 3 rebounds, and 1 steal. Sherelle, am I getting too giddy? I know we know where Sean stands with this, but I'm usually somewhat tempered. I'm getting to the point now where I'm like, man, this kid has some goods.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really much else to say. I mean, he has shown basically at every level from when he started playing up to 17th and ninth grade, all the way up to now that he belongs and that he is one of the better point guards in the class, the best point guard probably in the class, maybe the best point guard in high school. And I think coming into this spring, you kind of knew it, but you wanted to see him solidify it. And I think he's done everything he needed to do to solidify it. And that kind of goes with the idea about the reclass is like normally, again, I'm normally 100% against it. I just not a fan, and maybe that's me living in the Stone Ages, and me and Roy need to go have some okra and talk about the good old times.
Whoa,
But
whoa, 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 whoa,
uh,
whoa! You can talk about old stuff. You can judge things as being antediluvian and way out there, but I will not have you besmirching okra on this here show, sir. I know where you're
fair enough.
from. You know where I'm from. We will not say anything negative about okra, especially coming into okra season. Now I will
Okay,
remove myself from my pedestal and allow you to continue.
I will choose another vegetable that, when fried, is delicious.
There you go.
But the point of all of that is to say I'm normally not a fan of it, but I think there's really nothing left for him to do or prove. And it's kind of like if he spent another year in high school, there's not a point. Is he'd be bored. And I think honestly, I think that's some of what happened this year on the EYBL circuit. At times,
Mm.
he's played. I mean, he's played well the whole time. Don't get me wrong, but you can kind of see when he's challenged and how he takes it up to another gear. So I think that's kind of what's been happening is that he realized at some point, or realizes that, hey, I'm that much better than everybody else. And it's not, like we said when we interviewed him, he said it's not a cocky thing, it's just a confidence thing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like there's really nothing else to prove. There's really nothing else to say. Like, he does it all. And his last game of this EYBL session, if he doesn't decide to reclass, Peach Jam is in July. But if this was it, it was quite a way to go out. 29 points, 15 assists, kind of doing everything. Yeah, there's not much to say. He's a really good player, and it's been fun to watch over the last, I guess, 2 months. Him, solidify himself as the point guard in high school basketball.
The kid has absolutely found another gear. All right, Sean, I'm gonna kind of reset things for you here. You were very much like, I've seen what I need to see with this kid. Bring him to college now. Having these EYBL weekends where you've had a chance to watch him and see some, not just live stuff, but see film. Have you changed? Like, are you even farther that let me drive to his house and bring him to college? Like, where do you stand having seen him this summer? Like Sherelle said, he's proven what there is to be proved, I think. Sean, I want to see where do you fall, because you've been a big proponent. You have been very pro okra for quite some time. So where do you fall?
I have been pro okra since the first time I had it at timeout in probably fall of 2002. So yeah, I do agree.
Look at you angling. Look at you angling for a sponsorship. I hear you.
I mean, in terms of Cadeau, I'd say I'm usually pretty tempered in my expectations for players, and so I don't want to go crazy with him because I think there are, once again, that jump up is significant. But I think with him, the one thing I was looking at was, from a scoring perspective, what was he going to do coming in? He had played with some of those guys last year on the 17 under circuit, but now this is his final year. We know he can pass. We know his vision. So how is he going to be as a scorer, as well as his ability to shoot from the outside? I think that's going to be the big question mark. And I think from the latter part in his high school stage, his 3-point shooting has continued to improve. It's not at a, Steph Curry volume where he's going to be hitting 5 or 6, but he shot 37% throughout the EYBL from 3. He's shown the ability to hit from deep. So I think where, if he is reclassing, if he can just make defenders respect the 3-point shot and not always go under pick and roll screens, that's just going to open up so much in general. And I think, we've talked about UNC hasn't had a player with this vision since Kendall Marshall.
Yeah.
And I think, especially after the last 2 seasons, probably my biggest frustration point this past year was watching the lack of fast break basketball. Usually, at the beginning of the season, went through three or four of the first games, and it was around 72 dribbles to 4 passes across all the transition plays. And I think with this, you're just getting somebody whose skill set is completely different. So I'm not driving to his house to pick him up and drive him down to Chapel Hill, but I am definitely excited for the potential and what he can bring, and what he can also unlock out of a lot of the other players.
Yeah, I had a couple of things to add. I think, Sean, your last point is a good one about what he can add to the players. There's a lot of questions about how, if he does reclass, he may fit with RJ Davis in the backcourt. And to that, I would say guys generally like playing with people who make them better. And if there's one thing we've seen Cadeau be able to do over the course of his high school career, is to make everyone around him better. There are guys on his AAU team who uh, this year, let's say, their profile was not as high, maybe last year.
Mm.
And because, I don't want to say it's the only reason, because obviously they can improve, but one of the reasons that they're going to get better offers than they had a year ago is because they played with a point guard like Cadeau, who gets them into the right offense, who gets them in their spots, who throws lobs, who pushes tempo, and just makes everything easier for them. So when people bring up the chemistry question, I get it, just because you're adding another talented player who likes to have the
Sure.
ball in his hand. But I also respond with, well, he's going to make you better. He's gonna make things easier for you. So who doesn't want someone who makes things easier for them? So I would say that for the people who have questions about chemistry. And then the only other thing I wanted to add was, for me, a big question was, I think, we've had this discussion about true point guard versus lead point guard. And really that's just semantics about whether or not that particular player can score. So for me, the biggest thing for Cadeau was, can he score? Will he be able to go out and get you 15 or 20, if you need to? Will he be able to keep defenses honest? And I'll just give you this segment we like to call reading stats from a stat page. This is the last 2 EYBL sessions, and these are his point totals. 23, 11, 22, 22, 16, 20, 16, 16, 29. So I think that kind of answers the question. Right now, with his ability against, inarguably the best players in high school basketball, he's able to score 20 points pretty much every game if he wants to. So that answered that question for me about the scoring.
I want to ask both of you again. You guys watch a ton more ball than I do, especially at this level. One of the things that jumps off the screen at me about his game is how effortless he makes it look. I think that is really uncommon for a point guard. And again, a guy that's, he's not huge. It's not like he's bodying guys at his position. It's not like he's, 6'5", 6'6", the big NBA type point guard. Help me understand, is it just that he's that much better? Is it that he's that much more confident? Is it that he's that much more comfortable with the ball in his hand? Is it a hodgepodge of all of those? Sean, I'll go to you first.
I mean, going back to the winter time, we talked about how his measurements at the Basketball Without Borders, how that compared to really going back to the NBA Combine testing history, just from the lane agility and the explosiveness. So I think, and that was actually one of my concerns going back to EYBL of last year, was his ability to create space off the dribble. It almost seemed like he needed 2 moves to do that a lot of the time. And I think that's been one thing. You mentioned from a size perspective, he's not 6'4", 6'5", but he's tough, he's quick, he's explosive when he does get into the lane, and he's smart. So I think that basketball IQ, and got to watch when he did play the 2 games with Sweden in the FIBA World Cup qualifiers. I mean, he's going, they're playing Germany and Estonia. Germany was, all those guys are playing professional European basketball, anywhere from the German BBL, which is an extremely strong league, and they're 6'4", strong, all the way up to the Euro League. And you could tell he was young and he was small, but you could also tell he had that quickness, which a lot of those guys did not have. So it was still an adjustment playing against bigger, taller, more veteran players, but he did have that quickness, and I think combine that with his passing ability, and you have two things that can help break down defenses, even if defenders staying with him.
Rel, same question.
Could you repeat the question, please? I want to make sure I answered correctly.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
No, that's fair. Just noting how effortless he looks when he's playing, right? And again, Sean mentioned his measurables. He's not the biggest kid in the world. From my untrained eye, it looks as if it all feels easy to him. And I was just asking, is that confidence? Is it that he's just so comfortable with the ball in his hand? Is it just that it is that easy for him? And just to help us understand.
I think Sean nailed a lot of it. That quickness is a huge part of it, and that first step, he kind of, it's like a receiver who's going, or a receiver who's out on a route, and you just see the defensive back get shook because just that
When he
one
plants his
subtle,
foot.
and when he plants his foot, it's just that one subtle move. Not saying that's all he has, but
That's a good analogy.
he's really good at that. Just that first step, and before the defender knows it, he's already passed them, and he's looking again. He's already looking at the pass after the pass once he gets by that, with that first step. So I think that's part of it. Some of it, honestly, this is not to sound cheesy, but it's innate. I mean, there are just certain people who see stuff that other people don't see. We always go back to Kendall Marshall when we talk about that. And we asked Cadeau. We said basically like, "How'd you become a point guard?" And he was like, I've always been it. And I found that when guys kind of have that feeling of I've always done it and I've always done it at this level that much better than everybody, there's something there that we can't quite quantify other than to say they have it. And I think part of it is he has it. And then of course you have to work hard and enhance those talents, but some things he's just got that other people don't have.
I've heard the Kendall Marshall comparisons, but I'm going to pop somebody in the chat or somebody listening to this later on when I say this. Cadeau, Coda. There's some similarities in the wording there. I will say on some of his highlight passes where it looks like he's got the ball on a string, it's very Ed Coda-ish. One of the things I think that is so about his game that looks so easy is it's almost like he's shopping at Johnny T-shirt, right? Like it looks that effortless and that seamless. It's as if he is on his handheld device, just perusing the selection at johnnytshirt.com. It looks just that second nature to him, and I would wonder if he would be like an elite level shopper at Johnny T-shirt where he'd check it out. Want to give a big shout out to Johnny T-shirt. As we said at the top of the show, we have not, the three of us, been together recently to do a show, but Johnny T-shirt is still with us and continues to support the work that we do. So we're thankful for Johnny T-shirt and for all the support they give us. If you are looking for a Father's Day present, are a father and are looking for a present for yourself, or trying to tell someone in your family to purchase something for you for Father's Day, go to johnnytshirt.com. Check out all the new stuff they've dropped in the sale category if you want to save a little bit of money. If not, you just want to save your extra 10% off the top, use that promo code found on the premium message board, save your 10% off their already amazing prices, and you too can be an effortless shopper like we assume Elliot Cadeau is. All right, guys. Last thing on the prep side of things, Drake Powell continues to astound. I get the vibe, and we saw it recently. Sherelle, I can't remember, was it London or was it Branham that said he's going to get a bump in the rankings?
Travis said that.
Yeah, so Travis Branham said recently he felt very strongly that Drake Powell, in a write-up, I guess last week, maybe the week before, he felt like Drake Powell was going to get another bump in the new rankings that'll be out very soon. Sean, what else have you seen from Drake? Again, the numbers have kind of been all over the place, but despite the numbers being all over the place, his play has looked more consistent, I think, than it did last year at this time. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I would fully agree in terms of going into that first EYBL session of what do we want to see from him last year. In general, very very passive, fitting in with the team versus standing out. And obviously, the first EYBL session, MVP of it, pretty much spectacular in terms of what he brought to the table, and Stroll got to see that in person. And the numbers came down. I mean, I think one of the things we were looking for was that 3-point percentage and how is he going to shoot the ball at this level. And after the first live period looked pretty good. The numbers trended towards that Stevenson percentage that we were talking about in the I want to say in the 20s again. But I think just from his offensive ability, and Trevor Marks did an analysis a few weeks ago, but I think just that he has that size, that athleticism, the ability to move off the to take people off the dribble, and kind of that all around game. So I think he will be interesting to see where he lands. I know he got a big jump last time, but you think back to last year, and the question was, is he going to get an offer? He wasn't the first wing to get one, but he's proven maybe to have be better and have more potential than a lot of the ones that did not commit to UNC. So this past in Memphis was around 11 points a game, but I think he was able to rebound, show his athleticism, and I think can have an extreme impact on the defensive end as well.
Sherelle, I want to ask you, what have you seen more out of Drake Powell, and just what is your natural reaction when you hear about another potential climb in the rankings for him?
I think this when you start to see we saw production that first weekend, and we're still seeing some production, but I think you're starting to see now the potential as far as the rankings is concerned start to outbalance the production just a little bit. Again, not saying he hasn't played well, but when you look at Drake Powell, like he's a wiry 6'6", kind of 6'6.5" wing with a lot of athleticism who plays really smart. And that's kind of what the NBA looks for now. Like if an NBA general manager could get 5'6" guys who are wiry, who are athletic, and play good defense and had high basketball IQs, they'd be fine with that. There's such a coveted position, and I think for people who rank players, part of the job is to project into the NBA. Are they going to be a first round pick? All that kind of good stuff. And I think Powell has shown now all the traits necessary to be that guy. And he also shows kind of the intermittent, I would call it, production requisite to being an immediate impact player in college as well. So I think you're seeing those two kind of things balanced out when guys talk about him going higher in the rankings, despite him not maybe playing as well as he did those first couple of sessions. So it's always a balance, but I think Carolina fans again should be ecstatic because he just you just see the potential just as he plays, as he does things. You're like, oh my gosh, like if he just gets a little bit stronger, and
Yeah.
if he's just a little more consistent here, you're like, this guy could be a top 5 pick. And I'm not saying he's going to be, but I think that's where the ranking rise will probably come from, because to be honest, his play the last month and a half probably doesn't match it from the production side, but that potential is there, and it's hard to ignore once you've seen it live and in form. Like it's like, okay, this is what they're talking about. So that I think that's kind of where things stand with him. And he'll continue to get better, because there's one thing we learned about Drake Powell is that he's a worker. I think talking to his dad, I think he's in the gym. He drives himself to the gym every single day at like 5:30 a.m. He works out by himself and just goes about his business. So guys like that tend to just continue to improve.
Hashtag grind all-star. Hey, Sherelle, for the folks who aren't NBA fans listening to this or watching this, what is the NBA draft based upon?
Potential.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
that's, again, for folks that haven't seen Drake Powell yet, whether it be on tape or in person, he fits the build, and you can always see flashes like Sherelle and Sean have been mentioning. All right, fellas, let's do something a little different. I'm going to try to take some questions from the folks that are in the chat. They've made the time to join us live. So we'll try to see if we can't get a couple more of those. Sherelle, somebody asked earlier, and I can't remember who it was, but I'm going to go back and see if I can find it. But the question was, is North Carolina done in the portal? I would ask you right now, based on what you know, and that comes from our guy, Brett Weeks. Do you feel like North Carolina is done in the transfer portal for this season?
I'll answer it this way. We don't know anyone that they are currently talking with, or that they've shown interest in. However, back to our key points. The players have until the 31st to exit the NBA draft, and then there's no deadline for someone who's already entered the portal back at the original deadline in undergraduate to commit somewhere. And then graduate transfers can decide to transfer kind of whenever they want to. So at the moment, it appears no, but I think you shouldn't close that door or shouldn't assume that they won't add someone if someone comes along that they really like. But I think for the most part, in the next couple of weeks, you'll know the majority of the team, probably about 98 to 99% of the team. The slots will be full, and then they're likely to have at least one scholarship, and they can they again, random big man graduate transfer who wants to get 10 minutes behind Armando Bacot could decide to transfer and on June 18th, and you want to have a scholarship available. So I think it's just kind of wait and see. And if not, I think they'll be happy with the 11 or 12 guys they have on the roster. But you always have to be looking to see if someone else is out there. I hope that answered
Hey,
the question. So
I think so.
let me answer more succinctly. More than likely, yes, but never say never.
We can't confirm that. We can't confirm that they're done. Nobody's going to go on record and say they're done. Sean, what holiday will you be celebrating for the first time coming up in the next couple of weeks?
The one you were highlighting with Johnny T-shirt, Father's Day.
Father's Day. That's right. And I believe we have said before on the show that folks could judge the roster on Father's Day. Sherelle, you still feel like that's the case?
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I think so.
All right.
I think we'll have a much better feel for where things stand. Father's Day's only what 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks away.
I mean,
I think it's 3 weeks from today. So
3 weeks
yeah,
from
I think
today.
3 weeks from today, then you can say, okay, they failed, they succeeded, whatever adjustment you want to make about what happened in the off season. You can kind of go ahead and go forth with that because you'll have enough information of the roster on paper.
And we will be here for you if you want to make those claims. Sean, I got a question for you from Thomas Yancey. Do we have a real sniper amongst the transfers?
That is a great question. I would say no, but I do think Cormac Ryan has that potential to get closer to that 40%. Then you have RJ Davis, but a sniper, I would say no. But in terms of better shooting, between potentially Wojcik off the bench, Cormac Ryan, Jalen Withers spotting up from the corner, and then can Harrison Ingram improve, which I think he can, to ideally 35. 35. Well, I mean that's a big increase, but 33 to 35%. I think you're going to have a much better shooting team than last year, but not somebody where you're like, hey, that guy's going to be 40 to 44%, and it's automatic like a Brady Manic.
Sherelle, I want to ask you, we meant to talk about this earlier and I blew through it, so blame the host on this one. What is your sense for when the transfers will start arriving in Chapel Hill?
Paxton Wojcik told us himself that he expects to be in Chapel Hill on Thursday. That's June 1st. We haven't talked to Cormac Ryan recently, but when we did speak with him for the story that we wrote a few weeks back, he said he also wanted to be in Chapel Hill by June 1st, which again is Thursday. And Jalen Withers, we haven't quite gotten any info on him. And then Harrison Ingram is at Stanford, and they are on it's like a quarter system, or I forget what it's called. They have 3 semesters basically. It's weird. Anyway, they get out of school. I think it's trimester.
That's the West Coast for you.
Yeah. So they are done. I think his last day of class is like June 12th or June 13th, something like that. He said he wanted to go home to Dallas for a couple of days, and then he would be in Chapel Hill. So I would expect him, same thing, around that Father's Day weekend time frame to be in Chapel Hill. As far as the freshmen go, I think you expect them to start arriving around June 10th, and from there on over the next few days, getting on campus. So you would think everyone will be there. Everyone should be there who's going to be playing at Carolina next year by the start of the second summer session, which I think is July 26th, a Monday.
So it's usually around mid to late July.
Yeah, so everyone should be there by that date, and they'll start arriving here over the next 4 days, I guess. And that arrival time will go for basically 3 weeks.
I want to ask you a last question, Shref, before we get out of here. I saw UNC on their social media put out some practice clips the other day. And I swear it looked like they were playing 2-on-2 because there just aren't a lot of bodies in Chapel Hill right now. What do you think's going on in those sessions? Because they do have a handful that they are allowed to do by NCAA standards where the coaching staff can even see them, I think. What does that look like when you don't have a lot of guys in town?
I promise I thought I saw a coach setting a screen or coming off of a screen in one of the highlights. So
Hubert
there must
Davis
be.
out there running Long Beach with them. Yeah, sure.
I would not be surprised at all. But yeah, I mean, you still have a few walk-ons who are back, and then you have the four returners who are there, and they're all four of those you would expect to be playing some good minutes next season. Obviously, Davis and Baycott are going to play a ton of minutes, but you think Washington will take a step and Trimble will take a step. So um, I guess just trying to get more familiar with each other. You can do some 3-on-3. You can supplement with maybe guys who are on the JV team just to get a 5-on-5 run, and just more time on the court. I think is the more time you have on the court together, the better. So I think that's what you can do in those sessions. Work on shooting, just that kind of stuff. But hopefully, come Thursday, they'll be able to run 5-on-5 at least, and then kind of grow as more players come back.
Like you can't even do 3-on-2, 2-on-1 more than one time with the amount of guys they have right now. You'd absolutely put everybody under the bleachers after that.
Well, I don't think they were doing too much of that last year anyway.
Also true. Good point. All right. Before we get out of here, Sean, do you have 2 pennies you'd like to throw to anybody?
No, I mean it's what we're talking about is extremely exciting in terms of who still may be added. I think the one thing for me is, and I saw the question in here, predict the starting lineup, but I think it's more than the starting lineup. Predict how are the rotation, the lineups, and it's putting a lot of pressure on the coaching staff to try to find that right lineup for that particular game. Especially as we've seen in the past where play in the first half strongly dictates play in the second half. You go to that home game against Wake where Trimble was inserted into a 3-guard lineup that we thought, hey, this looked really good. Maybe you'll start to see more, and you didn't really. So I think between I think you will see a general increase in just toughness and attitude, but in terms of chemistry, I mean these are a lot of guys that will be expecting to play, and that's my major concern as we get into this of how does everything shake out. Are the people that aren't playing, are they unhappy, or are they kind of accepting, or will they be able to shine when they do get their moment? So the rotation, I think it will still be for me the biggest question as we go. How does that play out?
All right, Sherelle, you got 2 pennies for anybody, or are you good to go?
Yeah, just 2 brief ones. I think the only UNC commit we haven't talked about is James Brown, and I know people have been kind of worried about his numbers and his playing time and him not starting for Mocan, but I think over the last 2 sessions, you've seen his numbers, especially his minutes, clip up a little bit. And then this past weekend, he had his best scoring game. He had 16 points on 6 of 7 shooting on Saturday, and he followed that up with some just solid games. He had 8 points and 9 rebounds in limited minutes today. Another 10.6 rebound game on Saturday. So you're just seeing him slowly get used to, I think, his new team. And I would say I think the hope is as he and a lot of guys go off to individual camps like Pangos All-American Camp coming up soon, MBPA camp coming up soon. We'll talk about it in a couple of weeks, but the scholastic periods with their high schools is that they just continue to improve, and you see a better player, at Peach Jam in July than you do right now. And now people are like, oh, how can a player get better in a month? It's very possible, and it's happened before. So I think you're looking for that. And then the other thing I wanted to add was right now UNC with 2025 is basically offering everyone in the top 10. We haven't talked about it really much at all.
I wasn't going to bring it up, but feel free to go there if you'd like.
Yeah, so obviously Cameron Boozer, he has a familiar last name around these parts, the son of Carlos Boozer. He's the #1 player in the class, maybe in high school basketball. Him and Cooper Flagg are boxing it out for that one, but he got a Carolina offer. His brother, Caden Boozer, also has a Carolina offer. So Cameron Boozer's #1. We talked about Koa P. He's #3 in the country. He has a Carolina offer. Darren Peterson, number 4 in the country, has a Carolina offer. Caleb Wilson, number 8 in the country, has a Carolina offer. And obviously, they've been after Isaiah Harwell for a long time. He's number 7 in the country. He has an offer. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the top 10 in 2025 they've already offered. And you would expect, as they watch more over the summer, that the other 5 guys in the top 10 will probably get Carolina offers too.
As long
So
as they answer the phone, right?
yeah, and I would say part of that is, they've shown in 2024 that they're able to get top guys. They got the number 1 point guard in 2024. They got the number 1 shooting guard in 2024. They have a great shot with the number 1 or number 2 power forward in 2024, and they already have Drake Powell committed, who's a top 20 player in 2024. So I think maybe they're like, why not? And it gives them more time because they finished months earlier than everybody else
Absolutely.
to really go in on 2025. So that is one of the storylines that once this roster is finally put in place in 3 weeks, we can really turn the page and start digging into 2025 more.
Yeah, I mean, I know one of the things that you and Sean like to talk about on this show is who is the staff watching. We're interested to see who they're watching during the Peach Jam and the later stuff. So, all right, fellas. Well, as always, I'm thankful for you for making yourselves available to do this show because nobody wants to just hear me. So, thank y'all for being here and for the insights you provide. Hey, shout out to everybody in the chat. I think the 160 folks who made it for our only second live one of these. This is good stuff. And shout out to Johnny T-shirt for sponsoring us. We're big fans of theirs and big fans of their support and for making IC what it is. Appreciate John Bauman, producer John's help getting the audio technical difficulties taken care of earlier in the show. And hey, all of you over there fighting in the chat, let's clean that up for next time. I can't be dealing with anybody slap fighting in the chat. We're all here to have fun. But until next time, this has been the Coast to Coast here on InsideCarolina.com. For Sean Moran and Sherelle McMillan, I'm just Joey Powell. We'll catch you guys next time on the Coast to Coast here on InsideCarolina.com.